Bismillah, 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 Bismillah,
Deixai abrir a alma ao que vier, deixai entrar a paz do tempo que ela quer.
De par em par aberta, consola até ao fundo. Gastai a alma toda na harmonia do mundo.
Homens, deixai abrir a alma ao que vier, deixai entrar a paz do tempo que ela quer.
Homens que vagueais pela berma da vida, tereis enfim sinais da glória prometida.
Homens, deixai abrir a alma ao que vier, deixai entrar a paz do tempo que ela quer.
Na
Voz do dia novo, a dar bom dia aos astros. Quando a tristeza for, só pode os vossos rastros.
Homens, deixai abrir a alma ao que vier, deixai entrar a paz do tempo que ela quer. La 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 Homens, deixai abrir
نخله بكل عربله هلك دس نخله او پتش کتو کی ماشم صدا نبړې بكل عربله هلك دس نخله بكل عربله هلك دس نخله
جانانا شیرین قد و جانانا شیرین قد یک باغ تر باغ گفم دم یک دماغ شیرین قد یک زردینه حسوس دلی سینه ممساز لو دادینه شیرین قد و جنونه شیرین قد و جنونه شیرین قد و جنونه
جرجو مایی تابو جرجو شای زمو جرجو بارک میو جرجو بایک میو جرجو شیری زبو جرجو مایی تابو جرجو شای زمو جرجو بارک میو جرجو جرجو تو آمدی خیب آمدم پشتی با آمدم پشتی با وردیمو کدیم از آوردیمو کدیم از آق شیری زبو جرجو مایی تابو جرجو شایی زمو جرجو بارک میو جرجو شیری زبو جرجو مایی تابو جرجو شایی زمو جرجو فيك لجمال البلعاسي من مية تقلب يشرب كاسي ما بينساكي يا عروس المواكب سلام يا محلى روابيكي وشميميس عم تحكي ماضيكي شعوب كتير يا ما مرت فيكي وتاريخي عامر بالأمجاد سلام يا ست البلاد فيكي عين تحت العين وادي فيكي طاحوا تطحن ألف مادي فيكي تربوا آليتي وجداد فيكي تربوا آليتي وجداد فيكي تربوا آليتي وجدادي
Yali Madat, Assalamu alaikum, bienvenue. Welcome to another Friday Night Reflections. I'm your host, Zuleika Nathu. I'm a Canadian journalist living in the US right now, and I'm back for a second time. You like me. You really like me. A warm welcome to our Jamaati members from across the country and around the world, and a special shout out to our multi-faith family members because, my friends, this show is all about you. So the last time I hosted, it was because the theme was arts and culture, and I've been an arts and entertainment reporter for many years. But tonight's theme has a lot more of a personal connection for me, and that's because this is my husband.
And welcome back to all of you watching us here in the United States, Canada, and around the world. I'm Kim Brunhuber, and you're watching.
Yes, that's him stumbling on his own name while broadcasting to the entire world. I'm so proud. And this is our 6-year-old son. He is part South Asian, part Black, and part white, and therefore an excellent candidate for inclusive catalog modeling. But yes, you guessed it, we are also a multi-faith family. What does that exactly mean? Well, it means that we still celebrate Eid and other festivities together. Kim might not partake in the fasting, but he does partake in the biryani that I make afterwards. It also means that Amari and I will say our evening prayers while Kim clears the table and puts away the dishes. So really, the joke's on him. We get to share our ancestral roots with Amari, both from East Africa and South Africa. Honestly, some conversations are easy, like how to fold samosas properly. You gotta put your thumb on that corner, right?
Yeah.
But others are a lot harder, like what it means to be Muslim in America and Canada, and what it means to be Black. And so what we hope for is that in this tiny little human, where we see plurality and diversity, that we can plant a seed that will eventually grow into compassion and empathy. And that he'll grow up to be a great cook. But enough about us. It's all about you. So I hear that this past week, Canada was on track to match the US in the percentage of residents who have received at least one COVID vaccination dose. Way to stay competitive, Canada, and not just in Olympic hockey. I do hope that you and your eligible family members will get that first dose and that you'll be aligned for the second dose when the opportunity comes. This past week also saw another significant event take place. On Wednesday, Ethiopian novelist and writer Maza Mengiste delivered the 8th annual Pluralism lecture presented by the Global Center for Pluralism and the University of British Columbia. Mengiste's lecture about history, disruptions, and transformations was introduced by Princess Zara on behalf of Maulana Hazar Imam and the Board of Governors for the Global Center for Pluralism. So let's start this evening with Princess Zara's introduction and get some highlights from the lecture itself.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ms. Mengiste, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my very great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of His Highness the Aga Khan and the entire board of the Global Center for Pluralism to our 8th annual Pluralism Lecture. La conférence d'aujourd'hui est exceptionnelle puisque c'est la toute première fois depuis la première conférence en 2012 lorsque nous avons accueilli la présidente du Kyrgyzstan, Mme Rosa Otombayeva, à Ottawa, que nous ne pouvons pas nous retrouver en personne. Il s'agit de la première conférence depuis que la pandémie de Covid-19 s'est déferlée sur la population humaine de notre planète, laquelle a encore des répercussions à l'échelle mondiale aujourd'hui. The pandemic and the inequalities that it has magnified are a stark reminder of the urgency with which we must come together across our differences to build a more inclusive society. This is also the first lecture to feature a speaker from the world of the literary arts, an important yet often overlooked arena for advancing pluralism. Engaging with one another to build mutual understanding and appreciation across our differences, the kind of dialogue which is at the heart of pluralism, must continue. There are important lessons to be learned from the past year as the pandemic has transformed our societies and our institutions. Our ability to work remotely has shown new approaches to reducing our climate footprint and, for example, brought education to remote communities. These and other positive outcomes have the potential to strengthen our ambition for greater equity in and across our societies. Today's speaker, Maza Mengiste, has contributed in significant ways to bridging divides by illuminating the struggles and lives of individuals and communities that may be different from our own. How we talk about history at school, at home, and through literature is a powerful part of how we create a sense of belonging and shared destiny as a society. Ms. Mengiste's work reminds us of the hidden stories and voices that we must seek to amplify. Her writing considers how historical narratives and collective memory are shaped over time. History and memory are central to pluralism. We see this in many countries, where education is critical to building a pluralistic society, and in Canada, where the historical narrative is key in advancing reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. While inclusive historical narratives can reflect a country's diversity and foster belonging, an exclusionary narrative can deepen tensions and divisions between groups. These dynamics shape societal interactions for generations and can be challenging to change. Around the world, societies are grappling with the immense challenge of rebuilding after the pandemic. The recovery must be guided by principles of respect, empathy for one another, and to secure a more equitable, just, and prosperous future for us all. Ms. Mengiste's writing helps us reflect on the important lessons about recovery, peace building, and belonging to be learned from the past. As we face numerous challenges in building pluralism, we need gifted, visionary, empathetic thinkers like herself.
I own an old black and white photograph of two men standing side by side, inches apart from each other. One is East African and the other Italian. The East African, either Ethiopian or Eritrean, wears frayed shorts, so old and worn that large patches of skin gape through the holes. The bottoms are ripped unevenly, narrowing raggedly and stopping at his calves. An oversized jacket sags against his slender frame, the open flaps exposing his bare chest. He has crossed his arms almost protectively, and one hand rests against the bend on his opposite elbow. He is barefoot, and though it is difficult to tell his age, it is clear to see that his once dark hair is now covered generously with white. In 1935, Benito Mussolini invaded Ethiopia to colonize the country. It was not fair that Britain, France, Germany, Belgium, and other countries had staked a claim on the African continent without Italy. It was, he stated, Italy's right to have a place in the sun. Fascism would establish a second Roman Empire on African soil, and it would do so by conquering Ethiopia. One of the first steps towards invasion and war involved photographs, a visual narrative to establish a definition of Ethiopians as uncivilized, backwards in every sense, and lacking in all imaginative capacities. I do not know his name. I do not know what he was doing before he came to be standing in front of the camera. I do not know the relationship between him and the Italian next to him. I am not sure why he is folding his hands over his chest. I have to see what is there without smoothing out the rough edges of history. It is too easy to put myself into the photograph and reach into the past to settle the pieces into some reassuring order. It eases confusion. It leaves me satisfied in the present. But it also stops the recursive, nagging contemplations that could lead me to other discoveries. Because it is more difficult to reckon with the unwieldiness of history's omissions. It is uncomfortable to admit that photographs and other documents in other archives only lead to other questions and new uncertainties. Because if we cannot fully know the past, what does it imply about how we imagine the future? It is hard to leave an unsettling image with all its bristling and charged questions as it is and see it for what it is offering. It is easier to turn from the disruptive possibility of an unanswerable question. We have been taught for so long that an answer must always follow a question, that if we cannot point to a resolution, then we have failed. But what if, in that space between knowing and confusion, is an entire landscape where something else, beyond answers, but equally vital, exists? What if cradled within each moment of encounter is a force that can lead us towards real transformation? What if to be disturbed is just one step towards that journey? What if every step forward takes us not into the territory of comfort and certainty, but towards new disruptions and greater leaps?
What a profound reminder that not all questions need answers, and that honest dialogue can still result in meaningful change. You can catch that entire lecture on the Ismaili. Well, today, May 21st, is Diversity Day, or the World Day for Cultural Diversity for Dialogue and Development, because the UN can never keep anything brief. Maulana Hazar Imam has expressed to us and to people around the world the importance of approaching diversity with a cosmopolitan ethic. And that means looking at differences as a source of strength within our communities. Tonight, we are looking at one aspect of that diversity. We are blessed to have in our Jamaat and in Jamaats across North America representation from just about every corner of the globe. Almost every culture and language that you can find in our Ummah can be found in our Jamaat Khanas. Just wait until they open again. And so tonight, we'll be looking at what our institutions are doing to facilitate more diversity and inclusion. We'll also hear from people in our community that we don't often hear from, multi-faith family members. We'll also feature a brief clip from Global News where Farah Nasser and Camille Kermali will speak to Zain Munji about a vaccine finder app he created. And then, as we always do, we'll end the evening with some wonderful musical expressions. But let's begin by welcoming Council for Canada Vice President Karim Thomas.
برادران و خواهران عزیزم یا علی مدد، بسیار خوشحالم که امروز با شما هستم و روز جهانی تنوع و همشمولی را گرامی می‌داریم. امشب در مورد تنوع جماعت در کانادا تمرکز می‌کنیم و اینکه در عمل بتوانیم به عنوان یک جامعه یا کامیونیتی همشمولی بیشتر را ارج بگذاریم. قبل از شروع موضوع میخواهم تصدیق کنم که در سرزمین زندگی و کار میکنم و این ویدیو را از خانه خود در تورنتو ضبط میکنم که از نظر تاریخی جایگاه بود و باش مردمان هیرانوندت، سینیکا و بومیان میسیساگا بوده است. من خوشبختم و سپاسگزارم که در یک چنین سرزمینی زیبا زندگی و کار میکنم. در طی چند هفته گذشته به طور دردناک لزوم فوریت، اهمیت و چالش ترویج اخلاق کثرت‌گرایی در اینجا در کانادا و در سراسر جهان را درک کرده ایم. در حالی که جهان همچنان با چالش‌های کووید 19، تغییرات اقلیمی، نبود امنیت غذایی و آب و سایر بیماری‌ها دست و پنجه نرم می‌کند، مشاهده کردیم که شکنندگی انسان چقدر آسان است که دوباره درگیر جنگ، خشونت، بی‌عدالتی و تعصب شود. امروزه در جهان افراد و خانواده‌هایی هستند که در غمی از دست دادن عزیزانشان در جنگ و خشونت سوگوارند و برای همه کسانی در هر گوشه دنیا که از جنگ و خشونت رنج میبرند از صمیم قلب دعا میکنیم که صلح و آرامش دوباره به سرزمینشان بازگردد. باید جدا در نظر داشته باشیم که چه اتفاق می افتد اگر ما از کثرت‌گرایی روشنگرانه، عدالت اجتماعی و همشمولی دور می شویم. و این همان چیزی است که می خواهم امشب در مورد آن صحبت کنم. این اولین بار نیست که در این موضوع با جماعت صحبت می کنیم و آخرین بار هم نخواهد بود. می خواهم این صحبت کوتاه خود را به دو موضوع تنوع و همشمولی متمرکز نمایم. ما به عنوان یک کامیونیتی در سطح جهانی خوشبختیم که اعضای جماعت ما از 25 کشور دنیا نمایندگی می کنند. آنها دارای فرهنگ‌های متفاوت، سنت‌های متفاوت، زبان‌های متفاوت، غذای متفاوت و رسم و رواج‌های متفاوت هستند. در اینجا در کانادا ما به طور خاص خوشبختیم چون همه این جماعت‌ها را داریم. در واقع ما متنوع‌ترین جماعت در تاریخ کامیونیتی ما هستیم و این یک برکت بسیار خاص است. این افراد هویت‌هایی را تشکیل می‌دهند و بسیاری از ما در داخل جماعت در حقیقت می‌توانم بگویم که همه ما در داخل جماعت دارای هویت‌های متعددی هستیم. برخی از هویت‌های من از این واقعیت ناشی می‌شود که من از یک خانواده دو نژادی و خانواده پرجمعیت چند مذهبی هستم. اما من نمی‌توانم یکی از این هویت‌ها را بردارم و انتخاب کنم و به عنوان یک عضو جماعت به جامعه بیاورم. من باید آنچه که هستم و کلیت اصیل خودم را به جامعه بیاورم و این همان چیزی است که همه شما در جماعت با چندین هویت در جامعه زندگی می کنید. شما همه کلیت خود را به جامعه می آورید. این عادلانه نیست و از کسی نمی توان و نباید خواست که بخشی از هویت خود را وارد جامعه یا کامیونیتی نکند. این آن چیزی نیست که خانواده گفته می شود. خانواده این کار را نمی کند. و این مرا به موضوع دوم می کشاند که همشمولی است. مولانا حاضر امام به ما خاطر نشان کرده است که مسئله کثرت‌گرایی مسئله همشمولی به طور طبیعی در جامعه بشری نمی آید. این نیاز به سخت کوشی دارد. این نیاز به تفکر عمیق دارد. این امر نیاز به آموزش و پرورش دارد تا ما این طرز فکر و سنت را از دست ندهیم. و من میدانم که برخی از جماعت هستند که امروز این پروگرام را میبینند و همیشه احساس شامل بودن توسط اعضای کامیونیتی خود نکردند و در حقیقت احتمالاً بسیاری دیگر نیز هستند که این پروگرام را نمیبینند زیرا احساس کردند که توسط اعضای کامیونیتی خود طرد شدند. و من میخواهم به همه شما امشب دو مطلب را بگویم. اول به خاطر هر گونه احساس محرومیت که دارید، ما با صداقت و با گذاشتن دست بر روی قلب خود از شما معذرت می‌خواهیم. دوم، لطفاً به خانواده خود برگردید، به کامیونیتی خود برگردید. احساس جماعت بودن خود را با حضور خود و با همه هویت‌های خود غنامندی بیشتر ببخشید و تقویت کنید. هیچ بخش هویت خود را پنهان نکنید، اما بدانید که شما می توانید به این خانواده برگردید، به این کامیونیتی برگردید و در خانه خود باشید. من در زندگی خود چالش‌های سختی را پشت سر گذاشتم و آنچه از آن دوران به یاد می‌آورم و مطمئنم که این قصه برای بسیاری از شما در جماعت تاثیرگذار خواهد بود. و آن این است که وقتی برای من لحظات ناامیدی اتفاق افتاد، هنگامی که لحظات اضطراب روحی، استرس و ناامیدی به من ضربه می‌زد، من جماعتم را با خود داشتم. کامیونیتی من از من حمایت کرد، از خانواده‌ام حمایت کرد. ما می‌خواهیم در خدمت شما باشیم، در خدمت عزیزان شما، همین حالا و برای همیشه. و من این را برای کسانی میگویم که از پیشینه مذاهب مختلف هستند، اما از طریق اعضای خانوادهشان با جماعت پیوند دارند. این را به آن از اعضای جماعت میگویم که از پیشینه سنت‌های مختلف میآیند و در کانادا در جمع اکثریت نیستند، و به افرادی که احساس میکنند هویتشان در تضاد با هویت اسماعیلی است. و به همه شما میگویم که خوش آمدید. ما شما را دوست داریم. به خانه بیایید و با خانوادهتان باشید. در مذهب ما یک چیز بسیار خاص در مورد مفهوم سپاسگزاری وجود دارد. ما با ذکر و سپاسگزاری روزمره نعمات، برکات و موهبت‌های اندکی که خداوند به ما ارزانی کرده زندگی می‌کنیم. می‌خواهم که صحبتم را امشب با 3 سپاسگزاری به پایان ببرم. اول، تشکر از کسانی که هویت متنوع خود را وارد کامیونیتی ما می‌کنند. هنگامی که شما هویت‌های متعدد خود را نمایندگی می‌کنید، شما نه تنها به غنامندی ما به عنوان یک جماعت می‌افزایید و ما را تقویت می‌کنید، بلکه شما فضای امن برای دیگران ایجاد می‌کنید. شما بهترین الگو هستید و با آنها نشان می‌دهید که آنها می‌توانند بخشی از کامیونیتی باشند. بنابراین از آنچه انجام می‌دهید متشکریم. تشکر دوم از والنتران ما است که آنها بخشی از مجموعه تنوع و همشمولی ما در سراسر کشور هستند. در سال 2019 مؤسسات جماعتی این مجموعه ها را برای کمک به جماعت و مؤسسات در مسیر کامیونیتی با همشمولی بیشتر ایجاد کرد. این والنتران کار فوق‌العاده‌ای در این زمینه برای همه ما انجام دادند. هنوز تمام نشده است، اما از همه شما متشکریم. و نهایتاً از همه شما که این پروگرام را تماشا می‌کنید متشکرم. این عملکرد شما است، سخنان شما است و محبت شما است که باعث می‌شود ما بتوانیم یک کامیونیتی بیشتر همشمول برای همه ما در اینجا در کانادا بسازیم. برای همه کارهایی که انجام داده اید و برای همه کارهایی که انجام خواهید داد تا آن احساس تعلق و احساس خانواده و احساس شامل بودن را برای هر یکی از اعضای جماعت تقویت کنیم، از شما تشکر می کنم. همان طوری که مطلب بعدی در آینده می پردازیم، امیدوارم شما در مورد برکات و قوتی که تنوع به جماعت ما بخشیده است ایفای نقش و عملکرد هر یک ما که میتواند احساس همشمولی را در سراسر کامیونیتی ما تقویت کند توجه کنید. تشکر از شما. آرزو دارم در این زمان پرچالش همه شما ایمن و سلامت باشید. یا علی مدد.
Thank you so much, Vice President Thomas, for explaining some unique ways of promoting diversity and inclusion within our Jamaat. And now to showcase that diversity, let's hear from some of our multi-faith family members.
Salima and I met 31 years ago this year. We were both at an international development conference that was co-sponsored by the Canadian International Development Agency as well as Aga Khan Foundation. And it was May of 1990 actually, and a 3-week-long conference, and we were there to explore and discuss and debate issues of international development and youth leadership and global development. So we spent a lot of time together, obviously, in various sessions, in discussion groups, and we were both, of course, young, in our early 20s at the time, and the rest, as they say, is history.
We met at a fundraiser. I was the host and MC, and he was one of the musical acts. And so I asked his name. I asked for his name, and he said his name was Hafiz. He said, "Oh, like the poet." And he said, "Oh, you know Hafiz the poet?" And I said, "I do. As a matter of fact, I do." And then I did something that was very uncharacteristic of me. It was I recited poetry. He said, "I have 1,000 brilliant lies for the question, how are you? I have 1,000 brilliant lies for the question, what is God? If you think that the truth can be known through words, if you think that the sun and the ocean can pass through this tiny opening called the mouth, oh, someone should start laughing. Someone should start wildly laughing now." And these words came out of my mouth to someone who I had met for the first time. And I think it may have been inspired. I had just witnessed my first whirling dervish ceremony the week prior. And so it may have been, part of the inspiration from that. And anyways, from there, we developed a friendship. And we, through that friendship, recognized that we had a lot of commonalities. And it was always really nice and lovely to meet with him. And eventually, organically, that led to a kiss that really pulled the rug from under our feet, and the rest is history. And so 10 years later, and 2 kids later, and many memories and wonderful life experiences later, here we are.
My wife is Farah Vali Mohammed, and she's an anesthesiologist, and I'm a surgeon, and we met at work in the late 1990s. You spend time together in the operating room and just chatted and got to know each other, and one thing led to another, and we started going out, and it carried on to marriage. So.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Ludmila.
Together, we're Sean Mila.
Shamila.
We met watching a hockey game, the Montreal Canadiens versus the Pittsburgh Penguins in the playoffs. And I was fortunate that the Montreal Canadiens won, and Ludmila was in a great mood. And she was being very funny, so I asked her to marry me.
He actually did. That was the first thing he said to me.
Maybe 2 occasions that really draw people together and bring people together in a way that others don't. So there are, graduations and births of children, but weddings and funerals are kind of 2 occasions that really unify folks in a really profound way, where folks travel across the world and come together. And so we said, let's take this opportunity to bring together our families, our friends, our very diverse group of family and friends, actually, and celebrate who we are and allow this day to be an expression of who we are. So the different cultural components of both Hafiz and his traditions and myself, it was really important for us to capture those. So whether it was through music, whether it was through food, whether it was through dance, through the nikah, you know, so having a Persian ceremony and then going to Jamaat Khana and giving folks an opportunity, my side of the family an opportunity, and my friends to be in a Jamaat Khana, to have that experience, to bear witness to a wedding in that space. And vice versa. It was really important for us. And also it was really important for us for folks to understand the symbolism and the meaning behind all of the rituals and the traditions that we were celebrating and highlighting.
Faith is a huge component of what brought Salim and I together. Our respective strength in our faith, our respect of each other's faith. At no point in time was there a discussion or a hint of an idea that either of us would look to change or switch faiths to the other. Our love was born out of faith, but it was also born out of the strength of our faith as we explored that then.
You know, the first time my mother met Farah's parents was she had a dinner at her house. My father had met them one other time, but anyway, they came over for dinner and we were chatting, and my mother said, you know, I really enjoyed meeting the Aga Khan. And I think Farah's parents were like, what are you talking about? And my father was involved with administrative work at the University of BC, and as part of that, he and my mother would often go to social occasions. And in 1978, when the Aga Khan was visiting Vancouver, he had a special reception with some of the university people celebrating the fact that UBC had accepted a number of Ismaili students in the 1970s. And so my parents had gone to this, and I remember at the time my mother being very impressed with the Aga Khan. And then when we were having dinner, she was remarking on this, just sort of her reflection on what a special meeting that was. And obviously to Farah's parents, this was very remarkable that somebody outside the faith would be so familiar with them.
I have had a number of experiences with the Ismaili community, which have been interesting and fun. The first one was in Ottawa. I think we went to a
Kushiali, yeah.
Kushiali, and
they gave you zero context.
I had zero context. It was fun. It was interesting. We had a lot of fun. Got to see a lot of things and
a lot of dancing
and a lot of fun people. Once the Aga Khan was in Toronto, and we went, and I got to spend some time in a multi-faith room while Ludmilla was at the ceremony. And I learned a lot there too. Ludmilla is obviously more engaged with the community than I am.
Yeah, and it's great because anytime I'm at home doing any kind of volunteer work, or when it comes to things like partnership walk or other events, I feel like I kind of just drag you along, take you along for the ride.
Yeah, I've gone on many a partnership walks.
Salim and I have been together for 31 years, and so there is, obviously a long time that we have engaged. So we engage in the community in activities such as this, whereby we are used as a resource, or we put ourselves as a resource to help the journey of other Ismaili families or other couples navigating faith, both a multi-ethnic faith as well, of course, and as well as multi-faith relationships. I have, in the past, I've worked with Aga Khan Foundation Canada. I have served on the committee of the Partnership Walk for a number of years here in Edmonton. Of course, Kushali, we go to Kushali.
You know, the different ways that our family engages with the broader Ismaili community are through, celebrations such as Khoshalis. It's an opportunity to bring our broader families together to experience the traditions and the rituals, and it's really important to also explain and understand the meaning behind the practices and what we're celebrating and why we're coming together and really and rejoicing, right? So whether it's through rasra, whether it's through breaking bread, whether it's through just having really deep, meaningful conversations and engaging in dialogue about deeper underpinning kind of histories behind some of these events as well. Didar is another space and way that I've been involved in the Ismaili community, particularly, of course, the spaces that are designated for interfaith families and partners. So the last Didar was an opportunity to be part of that. Also, I work for Aga Khan Foundation Canada, and prior to that, I was involved as a volunteer for the World Partnership Walk. And so through those different engagements, I've had an opportunity, a privilege to work with a number of different stakeholders from across the country, from within the community. And also another way that I personally engage with the community is now as a parent. So my partner is quite regular in Jamaat Khana, his attendance in Jamaat Khana, especially prior, before the pandemic. And so both of our children have taken Baya. And so when my daughter was born, she had taken Baya. I would join him in taking her to Jamaat Khana and just experiencing that as a family. Of course, I would stay in the room designated to the interfaith families and partners, but that was also a way that I would personally be part of that and supporting her on her journey and helping foster her relationship to her faith.
We've been married 20 years now, and I must say through that 20 years, one of the great joys has been to be part of Farah's family, but also to really feel I'm connected to the Ismaili community and welcomed at many levels. Farah and I have done various volunteer activities often together. Our older son Rahim attended BUI class, and because he had some learning challenges, he really needed a parent with him in the class, and so I had the opportunity to essentially attend several years of BUI with him, and there's probably no better way to learn the history and a lot of the customs of the faith than to spend time with 7-year-olds or 10-year-olds, learning about them in detail. Over time, I've come to be able to attend or visit the downtown Drake Khane quite regularly. Again, I remember in the early days, Farah would either go down on her own, or I would drop her off and find out when to pick her up. And again, it was that sort of mystery of is she going to be finished at 8 or 8:15, or is there some mudless or something, and therefore she'll be there till 9 or 9:30. And over time, there was an opportunity to stay in the social hall downstairs, and then that evolved into helping out at the door, and so that became a regular event that we would all go to Khane on Friday night, and which was a nice way to spend the time and meet a lot of the community that way.
So when we first met, actually one of the first things that we bonded over was politics.
Yeah, we had many a healthy debate in the beginning.
Yeah. You had opinions, I had opinions.
Yeah.
Not the same opinions.
No. One of us was right. One of us was Ludmila.
But yeah, that was something that we had in common was, wanting to be involved, engagement with our broader community.
Exchanging ideas.
Yeah.
Well, I think certainly caring about other people
Mm-hmm.
and doing things to help people when we could.
Yeah. Just like betterment of our world as much as possible. Those were values we definitely had in common.
Yeah.
Which is why you're so supportive of all my volunteer work.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the funny memories really would be just answering the phone at my in-laws' home, saying Yali Madid, and having someone on the other side just continue talking in Kutchi, and having to politely ask them to stop, to speak in English, and they would then say, he said that so lovely, and he said that so nicely, and how is it that he doesn't understand Kutchi yet, and why have you been teaching him? So there was an expectation there at some times that I would know more about the language from a Kutchi point of view than I did, and that I do actually. Language is something that's constantly evolving. It is something that has evolved over the past 30 years that Salim and I have been together, and it is something that will evolve over the next 30 years. And it is, I think, where we are at right now. It is accurate to the extent that it is, we are a multi-faith family. We have different faith. I come from a multi-faith family to the extent that my grandfather was a Buddhist. My grandmother on my father's side was a Hindu. We're multi-ethnic in that I'm part Chinese, I'm part East Indian, I'm part Irish. So that multi-moniker, if you will, is accurate. And it represents really what, it represents who I am and who we are as a family and as a unit. It is a source of strength, I would have you know for sure, in that as a people person, when I interact with others, I don't really see barriers. I immediately look for commonality, I look for connections, being able to say with sincerity and being able to back it up that I come from, my wife is Muslim, my boys are Muslim, my grandmother was Hindu. All of that in terms of geographic regions. I was brought up in the Caribbean, I was born in England. There's just numerous things that I immediately gravitate to in order to connect. And so that term, as you ask about being multi-faith, it is where we are right now as a society and as a Jamaat, and it suffices.
But I would say the most poignant experience that I had was at my husband's Nana Papa's funeral. So very early on in our relationship, his Nana Papa passed away, and so we went to Ottawa and this was my first Ismaili funeral. And at one point during the ceremony, I think the Salvat was being recited and it was very moving. And I happened to have the sniffles at that time. And so I kind of just sniffled. And immediately, I don't know from where, how, and it was quite quick, a woman appeared right beside me with a Kleenex box and a cup of water. And she passed it to me, the cup of water, so I accepted it and I drank from it. And then she proceeded to rub my back. And I was so moved by this that I actually proceeded to start crying. So my sniffles from my cold turned into actual crying sniffles. And there were two components to this. One, I was so deeply moved by the way that the community came together, logistically, in such an organized way, but the intentionality behind coming together and supporting each other during such a pivotal time, such a painful and challenging time, but such a pivotal time on the spiritual journey, so to speak. So the other aspect of this that really resonated was just the concept of death and the way that it is interpreted and understood in the Ismaili faith, and then practiced and expressed through these ceremonies and rituals. And seeing death as part of the cycle of life, and convening to support the transitioning of the soul. And so, it really prompted a lot of reflection, introspection, and also discussions with my partner and with the family. And in doing that, it really deepened my understanding and appreciation of just my own journey here as a person, Ismaili or not. So that was a very poignant, I would say that funeral experience was very poignant and very profound for me. Even, the concept of, is it maaf, right? Seeking forgiveness, forgiving and seeking forgiveness. Such a, what a concept, what a thought, what a practice. How profound is that? At least I think.
With the Golden Jubilee, we all went down to the Durbar, and I remember at the time there'd been mentioned that the Aga Khan was meeting some of the non-Ismailis when he'd come to San Antonio or Chicago, and so there was this rumor that he would meet the non-Ismailis in Los Angeles. And again, I had no context or history to compare that to, but I attended the Durbar, and obviously the whole family was very excited to be part of that event. And then during the closing part of the event, the non-Ismailis who were in a room were invited to meet the Aga Khan, and there were probably, there were several thousand Ismailis there, and there were probably maybe 50 non-Ismailis. So it was remarkable that I had the opportunity to stand probably 10 feet away from him and be addressed by him. And again, having a sense that I was in the presence of just a truly special person, and somebody who was, very appreciative of the fact that we were there, because he knew that we were there supporting our Ismaili family members, and that clearly meant a lot to him, and it meant a lot to us. And so the Golden Jubilee was very special, and the Diamond Jubilee likewise. Again, our family was able to participate, and I was able to do some volunteer activities as part of that.
When we got married, we had to take all of the different aspects of our cultures into account, right?
Yeah. I wanted to make sure that we were still including Ismaili traditions, even though we weren't going to have, our wedding ceremony in Jamaat Khana. I wanted to include as many traditions as possible, but at the same time, being
product of
being a product of a multi-faith family myself, I definitely had two very different notions of what a wedding could look like. There's the, typical white dress, and the complete opposite with like this 17-year-long Indian wedding with 100,000 events. So there had to be some kind of compromise where we found a happy middle ground.
I know we're going to have more events coming up that we're going to have to take these things into account, right?
Yeah, like our daughter's bayat is next. I think that's going to be something that I want to make sure Sean's family is included on, so that her grandparents on both sides know what's happening. On my side, I want to make sure that, both my brothers are there, that my father is there. Even though he's not Ismaili, he experienced the bayat with me and my younger brother, but, I want to make sure that everyone knows what it means, what's happening, and that they're included as part of the process.
Honestly, I'll just be happy if it's not over Zoom.
I certainly think that diversity enriches us. Diversity in perspectives, diversity in traditions and experiences. It just enhances the lens through which we see the world and we understand ourselves and each other and the world at large. I think dialogue with the earnest desire to establish understanding is really, really important. And talking about, hey, why do we do this? Or what's the story behind that? Why do we practice these traditions and rituals? And having conversations about that and recognizing that actually at the core of it, at the depth of it, there's a kind of like, sometimes there are these truths and there are these reasons that, again, transcend a particular faith or religion and is able to establish a deeper understanding, but also dialogue about, broader societal issues and pressing issues of our time and reconciling, conflicts that we experience in life and in the world and in our personal life. And I think just having that dialogue and understanding the different way that perhaps different faiths, different interpret them. I think that's really, really important. I would say, dialogue and having spaces and forums where we can come together, whether it's through, an academic framework, whether it's through the arts. I think it's really important to just have spaces where we can engage in meaningful dialogue to establish deeper understanding of members of the community, of the Ismaili kind of community and Ismaili traditions, but also of other faiths and other traditions as well.
I feel I've been singularly fortunate that over the 20 plus years that I've known Farah and have been part of the community, that at almost every turn I've been welcomed and really included in so many activities, and people are often interested in my thoughts on it, and almost without exception it has been positive, that I feel valued and appreciated. And I think again, it's something where it takes time, and I think it requires sort of openness and trust on all sides, and that that truism that a stranger is a friend we haven't met yet. I think it is a challenge for both the non-Ismaili and the Ismailis in coming together to sort of come with a spirit of openness and trust. And so I think to the degree the community is successful, it is when there's that sense of warmth and openness and interest in the other and what they can bring.
So to me, an inclusive Ismaili community is one that sees that there is so much more to our community than just our typical Ismaili families that we've had so far, and accept or understanding that having an extended Jamaat is actually something that helps us grow and something that is a strength, and appreciating that.
Yeah.
Hey, extended Jamaat.
Yeah, and I think the community embracing different types of people is good. That's kind of the way the world is going right now, and I think that's a healthy way that I think we're evolving as a broader society, but within that I think the groups are evolving as well.
Yeah. One other thing that I would say is, both of our families were really supportive of us coming together, and because they saw and recognized that there was mutual respect and support for each other. And one of the things that there was never a request or an expectation that I would convert to the Ismaili faith, and I really appreciate that. but also implicit in kind of our relationship has been this premise that we all have deep potential. We all have, a potential to fulfill in this life. And so how can we best support each other in fulfilling our soul's greatest potential? And that has always been a big part of our partnership. And so it so happens that my partner has chosen the smiley faith, or the faith has chosen him, to express himself in this life and to fulfill, various aspects of his calling, and to heed guidance and to shine bright and to live his truth. And that's not necessarily the path that I've chosen. However, we are navigating this life together in partnership, and our paths are side by side, and there's a mutual respect and there's a mutual desire and yearning to understand each other and to support each other. And I think when that's there, I think it can really be conducive to both partners and families thriving.
I have been honored to be welcomed as part of the Smiley community here in Edmonton. A large part of that goes to my wife's family, obviously, and in terms of who they are as individuals. My mother-in-law, from the very first day, that I came into her home, I answered the phone was for her. I called out to her saying, "Hello, the phone was for you." She immediately stopped what she was doing. She looked over the banister and she said, "My name is not hello." That pushed me to say, "Okay, Mom, the phone is for you." And well before Salima and I got to the point of talking about being a couple in terms of being married, I have been calling her Mom. And that is a memory that has stuck with me for, obviously, from the start of our relationship. But it also represents to me experiences that I have experienced over the number of years from the Smiley community, from Smiley families. As I mentioned, Salima and the 3 boys and Mom actually went and lived in Kenya for 7 months. I was not able to join them because I have a business here, and they were welcomed with open arms. The power of being able to interact with someone, to say Almadid, and to have doors, windows, everything opened up to you is something that is quite phenomenal. And it's been a real honor to witness and to be a part of that.
Those were such great stories. We should do a documentary. I'm on it. Thank you so much to all the families who shared their wonderful stories with us. With the uptick of vaccines and the increased availability of doses in Canada, it is so helpful to hear how we should now be approaching the pandemic. And of course, you can find out where to get those vaccines in many parts of the country thanks to an app developed by Zain Munji. Take a look.
We hear a lot these days about the negative aspects of social media. And Alan, its capacity to spread negative or worse.
Yeah, that certainly is out there. But a reminder tonight that there is also an ability with social media to bring about positive change, especially when it comes to finding yourself a vaccine.
Joining us now is the creator of a texting tool to help people find a vaccine. Zain Munji joins us. And we also have Global's Camille Kermali, because Zain's idea came from a tweet from Camille. So first, Zain, I got to start with you, though. I mean, you created this just a few days ago. What has the response been like?
The response has been amazing, honestly. So many people are messaging us saying thank you for making this tool. We're getting a lot of DMs and stuff in our inbox just from people saying that they've been able to book a vaccine, because of this tool, and also be able to join a wait list because of this tool. And the response is just amazing. It makes us all so happy. And, it's just one step closer to going back to a normal world.
All right, Zain, let's back up. Let's talk about what the tool is. And Camille, this is where you come in.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a Friday afternoon. I didn't think too much about it. I saw a tweet that I retweeted, and it was about this tool in the United States where if you text a number, you will immediately get a reply of vaccine clinics in your area around you. So I just tweeted, brilliant, great idea. Without missing a beat, this guy, Zain Munji, responded to my tweet saying, I think I could do this in Ontario. And I was like, okay, well, I actually asked him, what, do you want to do an interview on this on Monday, thinking it might be, a bit of a stretch. But then he tweeted back saying, hey, I think I could whip this up in an hour. In an hour, he said. So, Zain, why don't you take it from there? What happened then after that?
Yeah, as soon as you tweeted that, I just immediately started looking at that screenshot that you tweeted. And I asked myself, how hard would it be to actually build something like this? And I just did a little bit of research. I talked to my co-creator on this, Ashish, about it. And we just realized that we could probably do it in 1 to 2 hours if we started right away. And that's kind of just what happened.
So it was done in under 3 hours, right? About 2 hours. Does it surprise you, Zain, that it took you that short amount of time, and that's something that the government couldn't come up with in more than a year?
So one is I'm not surprised it took me that long. I mean, it's, if you're an engineer like myself, I think if you saw the code, it'd be very straightforward, right? It's literally, you set up a phone number, you read the postal code, and then you just search it and then send it back. As for the other question around the government, I don't know why it may have taken so long to make it. Maybe it just wasn't on the roadmap for them, actually. So maybe they just didn't decide to do it. But it's very simple, honestly. It's literally like less than 100 lines of code.
All right, before we let you guys go, let's bring up that number. How do people actually take advantage of this, Zain?
Yes, so all you really need to do is you need to text 1-833-356-1683. And what you do is you text it your postal code. And in 1 to 2 seconds, you'll get a response back with the 3 closest vaccination sites near your postal code. And in that response, you'll see the pharmacy name, the location address, the website, and the phone number. And then just click on it and try to book a vaccine.
Incredible. Zain, people like you are making this so much easier for the rest of us. We really appreciate it. And Camille, thanks for putting that tweet out there that got this all started. Thank you both.
Thanks, Camille.
Just before we end, a reminder that tomorrow, Maulana Hazrat Imam will deliver an address at Aga Khan University's first ever global convocation. This will feature chief guest Melinda Gates, and it will bring together the graduating classes from Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Pakistan, and the UK. So you can catch that on the Ismaili/TV at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. And now, as always, we will wrap up with some musical expressions, this time with a song composed by our very own Hussein John Mahmoud, featuring 2 of the very talented multi-faith members of our community, Samida Joglakar and Andrew Haji. Have a great week, everyone. Bye. Bonsoir. Yali Madat. Salam. Stay safe.
والحمد